Namaskaram. Welcome to my channel VPK Nutrition Mind Body Healing with Pushpa. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about food again. I'm going to be talking about ultra processed foods. Now, these are foods that are very detrimental to our health, and it has gained a lot of popularity in the last couple of decades. And in 2009, a Brazilian nutrition researcher is one who coined this term ultra processed foods. So I'm going to be giving you what it is, give you the difference between that and a minimally processed food, as well as talk about its impact on our health and also how to make better choices so you keep yourself healthy. So stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for my viewers who have been watching regularly and also giving me feedback. For those who haven't already done so, please do watch and subscribe to my channel, and also give it a thumbs up if you like this. Make some comments and also share with your friends and family so others can be benefited as well. So let's begin with our topic today. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the quality of the food that we eat. Again, let's talk about the basics of food itself. Now, in Ayurvedic times, ancient times, people always ate healthy foods, naturally grown, more whole grains and fruits and vegetables that were naturally available, and this kind of processing was not even a concept. So in those days, the food was always believed that it is for nourishment, and Ayurveda says food is for prana or life force, to give us life energy within, so that we can do all of our duties optimally and have the energy to do it. However, we live in a different time. In modern times, food is just something that we do as part of our life. And although we know intellectually it's for nourishment, we actually want something very convenient and quick, and not spend a lot of time cooking and just go out and buy something and have it right away. So this has become our modern lifestyle. So naturally, because of this, a lot of the companies started making processed foods and convenience foods and packaged dinners and things like this, so people can just stick it in the microwave or just go to some fast food, pick up something quickly, and then keep going. So again, this has led to a lot of health problems in the modern times in the last couple of decades. So if you look at the American diet, about 60% of the calories comes from ultra processed foods, and other countries like Europe, Canada, France, and Lebanon, Japan, etc. have shown 25 to 50% of their diet comes from ultra processed foods. Their calories come from that, and of course India hasn't really joined the list, but again, it is tending in that direction. I read an article that said that in the sales data in the last decade has shown that it is tending in that direction of eating more of these processed foods as well as drinks. So again, the obesity has also increased by about 25% in the last 5 years in India, and diabetes has also increased quite a bit. So again, a lot of these things tell us that going towards this ultra processed food has not really been helpful. Although it might have given you the convenience and the quickness and all of that, it hasn't really been good for our health condition. So we need something that is more long-term solution, rather than going for some kind of a quick fix just to feed ourselves when you're hungry, rather than nurturing this body so that body serves you well. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. We will be defining what is an ultra processed food, a processed food, and also how to make better choices to keep ourselves healthy. So let's break it down and give the definition of what a processed food is. The USDA says that anything that changes the fundamental nature of an agricultural product by heating, freezing, dicing, juicing is a processed food. So based on that definition, we can imagine that a lot of the foods do go through some kind of processing. So it's not always bad. And if you think about the dals in India, those are also broken down from the whole grains and made into those dals. But that is not necessarily a bad ultra processed food, but it's basically a way to make it easier for a consumer to cook and digest it. So again, that is still okay to use in your day-to-day life. However, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics classifies the foods from minimally processed to heavily processed, and I'm going to go through those one by one and what some examples of these things are. Number one, minimally processed food would be like bagged spinach that they are washed and cut and then put in a bag, fresh blueberries, roasted nuts, whole grain bread, fortified milk. These are some examples of minimally processed foods. The second category is foods processed at their peak of to lock in the nutritional quality and freshness. For example, a lot of the berries are harvested or when the season, and then they are flash frozen to preserve the nutritional quality and freshness. And then tomatoes are usually canned when picked in season, canned tuna, and then frozen vegetables. So these are some examples of fruits processed at their peak. Number three is foods with ingredients like salt, sugar, oils, spices, preservatives added for flavor and texture. Like this would include salad dressing, sweetened yogurt, cake mixes. Now again, these are also quite processed. And again, you have the ready to eat and heavily processed foods, for example, crackers, granola, deli meats, frozen pizza, frozen dinners, fast foods, ice cream, sodas, chocolates, bakery items, instant noodles, packaged sweetened cereals, packaged soups, donuts, hot dogs, cheese crackers, boxed macaroni and cheese, fries, etc. The last category that I talked about are the highly processed, ultra processed foods that we need to avoid. So I want to give you a definition of what an ultra processed food is. So again, all foods, you see, salt may be added, sugar may be added, and some processing has taken place. However, when a whole bunch of additives are added to that to make it stay for a long time, long shelf life, then it slowly loses its prana. And those are the ones that have to be avoided. And finally, it ends up being not even a food product. And so some of the ingredients in an ultra processed foods would be things like phosphates, which are used as additives or preservatives, artificial flavors, natural flavors also, colors added to it, sweeteners of all kinds like high fructose corn syrup, like maltodextrin, etc., stabilizers, and also preservatives. So if the food has a long list of ingredients that you don't recognize it, then it shows as an ultra processed food. So basically, if you read the label and see there are 50 different ingredients on the label, then you know it's a highly processed food. And it really, at the end of the day, it's not even real food anymore. It is just they've taken some part of the food, some kind of part of the whole food, and then process it in so many different ways. Like for example, if you take cereals, it's made from rice or wheat or whatever, but really there is no semblance of wheat or rice when you start eating that cereal. However, even oatmeal is even better than that, although that is also processed. Definitely a steel cut oats has much more nutritional value than something like a cold cereal. So again, and then there's so much of sugar and salt and everything added to that, which makes it also more very addictive. So this is something they found is ultra processed food also not only tastes good and are easy to palatable for us to eat, although you don't know about your digestion, but definitely it becomes more addictive to eat more and more and more. So what is the impact of eating these ultra processed foods on our health? So I'm going to go through those one by one. Number one, many studies have shown that there are a lot of negative outcomes to eating ultra processed foods as far as our health is concerned. They've seen an increase in diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer. So a study done in the Journal of American Medical Association 2019 showed that if people consumed at least 22% of their calories from ultra processed foods, there was a 15% increase in getting diabetes compared to those who were not doing that. Number two, ultra processed foods have also been linked to weight gain. So there was a study done with about 20 participants in a medical facility. This was done in 2019. It's from Cell Metabolism Journal. And here they gave them, for 14 days, they gave them ultra processed foods, and then for 14 days, they gave them unprocessed foods. So, and then they were allowed to eat as much as they wanted to. And they found that when they were eating the ultra processed foods, they were consuming 500 more calories than the unprocessed foods. And the second thing that their results showed that when they ate ate the ultra processed foods, they actually gained 2 pounds, whereas when they were on the unprocessed diet, they actually lost 2 pounds. Now again, this goes back to the understanding of Ayurveda, where you eat fresh foods, foods that are nourishing for the body, which are natural and easily digestible by the body, then you will actually process it well, because again, it goes back to the 5 elements, right? When you eat the real foods, they're made of the 5 great elements, which is also part of our own body, and so naturally it's easy to digest and also get assimilated as becomes part of our body. However, when you eat these chemicals and things that are not recognized by the body as natural, it takes a lot longer to process and also leads to weight gain and all of these other problems. Number 3, these ultra processed foods have the addictive quality in them, because we're giving them so fast in a highly processed manner, which is full of refined carbohydrates and fat, and so this has an addictive potential. So this also leads to overeating, and again, that leads to weight gain and all these other chronic illnesses. Number 4, they found that these ultra processed foods were also linked to higher amount of depression, especially in adolescents. They did a study on adolescents to see how the depressive symptoms were, and they found that people who were eating more highly processed foods were actually showing more signs of depression. So again, it again goes back to that concept that from Ayurveda, that these highly processed foods are actually very tamasic in nature. They're very dulling for the mind and the body, and causes sluggishness and are not digested very well. So again, all of these things can cause depression in the mind as well. Number 5, eating ultra processed foods also showed showed there's a link between eating that and impaired cognition, especially in older adults. And again, they did a study, this was published in the European Journal of Nutrition in July 2022, where they showed this link between cognition decline in elderly population. Again, go back to Ayurveda. The elderly, the age is actually Vata stage of life, so it's cold and dry. And again, these ultra processed foods are very dry and processed and cold. They don't have any moisture, they don't have any prana. So when you already have a lack of prana as you get older, this just compounds the problem even more, leading to further dryness and all of these debilitating conditions that elderly population have to suffer through. So as you can see, I've talked about what processed and ultra processed foods are, what kind of impact they have on their health. So what do? We need a solution, right? I just gave you the problem. We all know the problem. What is the solution? So I'm going to go through 5 great tips that you can use. Number 1, obvious solution is eating freshly prepared foods, using whole grains, fruits, vegetables, just natural products. The more prana in the food and more freshly prepared and eaten almost right away, definitely that's going to be the best solution. Number 2 would be try to always pick the whole food rather than going for something made from it. For example, eating an apple is definitely better than eating maybe an apple chips, even if it's baked, or even apple juice or apple sauce or apple pie or whatever it is. Because again, same thing with potatoes, right? If you eat potato, you can actually get some nutrition from that, because potatoes have iron and vitamin C and all of that. However, when you make it into a potato chips or fries, when you fry it, or eating potato flakes, instead of making actual mashed potatoes, you're making from mashed potato flakes, you definitely don't get the nutrition. That's number 2. Number 3 is eating minimally processed foods. For example, you don't have the time to cut the vegetables and make them, you can buy frozen vegetables. That is still okay, because it is flash frozen and picked during season and all of that. It has nothing added to it. Of course, there are vegetables nowadays with salt and sugar, so definitely I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about eating frozen vegetables, even frozen berries, which are flash frozen in season. Those are still okay to consume. And frozen lean meats, things like that. Number 4, of course, is reading labels. Now, again, it's so important to read labels, especially if you're buying packages from the store. Read the labels, look at all of the additives. If it has 50 ingredients in them, definitely this is not really food. It's just a bunch of chemicals thrown together to taste really good. But we're not eating for taste, we're eating for nourishment. To keep that in mind. So let's look at this label. This is a label for enriched rice. As you can see on the label, thiamine mononitrate, folic acid is okay. Then you have salt, and it has cornmeal, it has maltodextrin, hydrolyzed corn protein, monosodium glutamate, MSG. Then it has sodium aluminosilicate, which is an anti-caking agent, and so many artificial colors in it. So as you can see, that label showed so many different ingredients which we don't even know what they are. And if we don't even understand what they are, imagine how the body is going to have difficulty processing that. So even the simple thing as a rice, they've added so many things for preservation. So you want to get to the product as close to nature as possible. Number 5 is eating more plant-based products. Now this is becoming very popular nowadays. However, when we talk about plant-based products, we're not talking about getting all these veggie burgers which made them look like meat, because you still read those labels. They have so many additives added to them. Once in a while you may be in a hurry, you might make it or whatever, that is still fine. But overall, it is better to create your own burgers. Like for example, you can take the chickpeas or black beans or whatever, add some vegetables, and there's some spices, and for the holding it together, some kind of flour, and then mash it all together and then cook that in your stove and eat it. Or you can even freeze a couple of those and keep it. You still know how much salt is added, how much spices are added, how much vegetables, everything is there. You can determine what is in the burger rather than buying something like this package which has been sitting in the shelf for God knows how long. So again, these are certain tips that you can follow on a regular basis. Again, being conscious of what you're eating every time is very important. So mindful eating, sit down, enjoy your meal, chew your food well, and all of these are also going to make a big impact on how you digest your food, metabolize your food, and imbibe that prana that you need to live. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, we live in this modern world of go, go, go all the time. So naturally, ultra-processed foods have kind of taken on our life. So we want to try to make better choices even in this kind of an environment. So here are 5 tips. Number 1 is obviously eating freshly prepared meals as much as possible. Number 2, eat minimally processed foods if your time is limited. For example, choosing frozen vegetables if you don't have time to cut fresh vegetables. Number 3, eat the whole food rather than eating its products. For example, eating a whole apple is definitely better than eating apple juice or apple chips, even if it is baked. Number 4 is read the labels. Now, if you see 50 different ingredients on the labels with a whole bunch of additives and colors and sweeteners and all of those things, definitely avoid that and pick foods which have the least amount of ingredients closer to the actual food that it's supposed to be. Number 5, again, plant-based is becoming very popular. In the name of plant-based, we are making all kinds of products, but again, if they still become ultra-processed, if it has so many ingredients. So if you're buying a plant-based burger, for instance, read the label. If it has only 2 or few ingredients, it's fine. But if most likely they have a lot of sodium and things like that, it's better to make your own burger, eat a couple and then freeze a couple and use them. So this way you control the amount of sodium and the spices and whatever is in there. And it's still healthier than buying something out there. So these are my 5 tips. Again, be conscious of what you're eating. Be conscious of the choices that you make. When you are more mindful about picking your foods, you will make the healthy choice. Also listen to your body. A lot of times when you eat these kinds of products, your body starts to, some problems start to happen in your digestion, is gas, bloating, things like that. If you observe a lot of these things, then you realize that that is not good for you. Of course, once in a while you do eat these things, you cannot avoid it. But try to do like 90% of the time, try to eat healthy. So I'm going to leave you with this. Listen to your body, observe your mind, and help heal yourself. And I'll see you next week with a new episode. And have a wonderful week ahead.